Welcome everyone. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. My name is Hannah. I am going to be starting a bit of a new series on my channel where I'm going to be basically trying to provide as much value as I possibly can in the longer forms of videos in the same way that I would do with a friend, with a coaching client, with someone I deeply cared about. I enjoy the other content that I'm making, which is a little shorter, much more practical, focused on tidbits and little pockets of life, but these videos are going to be on more extensive topics. And the reality of it is, as I was reflecting on what I want my channel to be, this is a God-conscious self-improvement channel, and the quality of the content is super important, but the content itself, what I'm saying to you guys, is even more important. And there'd just be times where I'd be driving and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I wish I could just give this rant or record this rant that's going on in my head and give it to the people that watch my channel or follow me on TikTok. This video, inshallah, is going to be providing tremendous value about how to navigate hardship in your life. Okay, let me start off by saying this. I have a TikTok. If you do not follow me on TikTok, but you have a TikTok, I'll link it below, but it's at Hannah the PA. I posted a video of a reflection that I was having on a certain verse. The verse was the verse, Indeed, with hardship comes ease. Indeed, with hardship comes ease. This verse is one that you have inevitably heard about if you have gone through any difficulty in life, especially the catastrophic difficulties that we are going to go through. We're almost guaranteed to go through, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran that He's going to test us. And it was always interesting to me because when we learn about this verse, very often we learn about it in the context of when you're going through a hardship, then know that at the end of the hardship comes ease. But then I was reflecting about the language of the verse, and this is something that's kind of helpful when you're someone who knows Arabic, is knowing the word for word translation. Inna ma'al usri. Ma'a is the word for meaning with, right? Ana ma'a ummi. Ana ma'a ummi. I am with my mother, right? With hardship comes ease. God never gave a caveat that hardship, the ease comes at the end of the hardship when everything is all said and done. Now we know that to be the meaning. That's what scholars interpret the meaning as. There will be, inshallah, after the hardship is through, there will be ease. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will gift you with ease. But the reality of it is when we interpret it strictly as ease coming at the end of the hardship, then we lose out on a lot of the blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us. So hear me out when I say this. The ease comes alongside the hardship. So what do I mean by that? It means that while you're going through the garbage that you're going through, the difficulty that you're going through, no one wants to go through it. But don't neglect the peace in those moments of grace that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sending you, those times that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you relief during the actual hardship. When we're so focused on just getting through it and getting to an end, and we're holding out for this end that we don't even have a date for, we don't know when it's going to, Allah doesn't give us a timeline on our hardship, we lose out on all of these moments to be able to anchor into the peace that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us. So that's the start of my point that I'm making to you. Let's talk about going through hardship. This is a self-improvement channel. Your moments of difficulty, no matter how short or how extensive they are in your life, they are the opportunity for alchemy. They are the time in your life, as cheesy and as cliche as it sounds, those are the times where you are going to have the greatest possibility of growth, the greatest possibility of transformation, the greatest possibility of reinventing yourself. I talk about reinventing yourself a lot because that's really what self-improvement is about. It's about taking the old version of yourself, the version that is less disciplined, that is less, it doesn't hold as tight to your principles and your values, the version of you that isn't proud of who you are, and turning you into a person that you are proud of, and more importantly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is proud of. When it comes to going through those moments of difficulty, I know firsthand, and if you know my story, and I've been transparent about my story on TikTok and even on my YouTube channel, how I even came to self-improvement. It was through a lot of difficulty, in many years of difficulty. I struggled with my mental health issues. I struggled with depression. I struggled with anxiety. I struggled with complex PTSD. It wasn't a joke. It truly tormented me for several years. So getting to this point when I'm talking to you guys, I'm not talking to you as someone who's just like, oh my God, let's do self-improvement because I think it's going to make me a cooler version of myself. It's like, hey, let me show you God conscious self-improvement, because this is how you get through the stuff that is hard in your life and become a version of you that is so transcendent above all of that difficulty, and a version of you that not only thrives in the dunya, right? Because that's important, but also thrives in the akhirah, because that's even more important. I've gone through it. I've been there, done that. Not a fun time. I would not go back to it. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already guaranteed us that we were going to go through those hardships. And I remember going through the difficulty in my life, and I just like go on YouTube and I'm like, how to be patient for Muslims, how to get through hardship for Muslims. And because I was still trying to anchor into my deen. I might not have understood it at the time, but at the very least I knew that the answers had to be in this faith. The answers had to be in deen. So I was looking for it. And it was hard because I would come across these videos that paid a lot of lip service to the idea of patience, that paid a lot of lip service to the idea of tolerating and enduring hardship. But I'm someone who's a very practical person, and I need a little more than lip service. I don't like fluff. I don't like, super flowery language. I know our faith has point, there's a time and place for it in our deen, but I was just like, listen, I'm drowning. I don't got time for your poetry. I need answers. I need what to do. So we're going to talk about that today, okay? Let's talk about patience. The Prophet ﷺ said, patience is in the first strike of the calamity. The story actually, and this is important, when we talk about these verses, sometimes people like, you have to know the context in which the Prophet said the things that he said, because it allows a window into the truth of the human spirit and human soul. So basically, there was a woman who was grieving the death of her child, and you can't imagine a pain truly greater than that on this earth. It's something I genuinely make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't test me that. That's how terrified I am of it. And she was grieving, and the Prophet ﷺ came up behind her, and he told her, like, be patient, be patient with this hardship, something along those lines. This woman shouts, and she goes, like, who are you to tell me to be patient, or what do you know about patience? There is a little bit of a caveat. She didn't know who was telling her. This was happening behind her. She didn't realize who she was talking to. I'm sure if she knew who she was talking to, she wouldn't have said that. She was a Muslim woman. She was practicing. She's in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ. Someone comes up to her and they're like, do you know who you just said that to? When she realizes, she's like freaking out, and she goes to the Prophet ﷺ and she apologizes, and she's like, I had no idea it was you. Prophet ﷺ tells her, patience is in the first strike of the calamity. Patience is in the first strike of the calamity. Now, the Prophet ﷺ had already lost his children. He'd lost his son. He'd lost his, he's endured so much death in his life of people he truly loved. His grandpa, his uncle, another uncle of his, Hamza, his wife, his daughters, his son, a few sons. He had already experienced that, and he's telling this woman patience is in this first strike of the calamity. The first thing you need to know about patience in this actual, like, how to get through hardship, is that patience doesn't mean that you can't feel like garbage or you can't feel bad. I don't like it when people try to frame patience as this super virtuous, like, oh my gosh, well, you just don't be sad about it and don't be hurt about it. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us a capacity for emotion, and when you blunt those emotions and you try to cover them up, first of all, you're doing yourself a disservice. So we talk a lot about nervous system regulation, because that's such an important part of self-improvement and like reinventing yourself. When you shut those emotions down, you're going to dysregulate your nervous system. Our bodies are meant to be able to feel. They're meant to be able to experience those emotions. Now, don't let it take you to a point where you're completely off your rocker and don't know how to operate, because Islamically, our deen gives us boundaries of how to operate. This is one of those. You're allowed to feel. You can be sad. You can be upset. You can be angry. You can be frustrated. You can want this to end. Nobody sits there. It's not virtuous to sit there and be like, I love this difficulty. No, you're not even supposed to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for hardship. You're not even supposed to make dua for that, right? That, like, we're supposed to have a dislike for it. But the point is, when it comes to patience, you recognize that even in those emotions that you're feeling, even when you're feeling anxious and depressed and angry and disheartened, in that instance, when your brain is trying to allow those emotions to take over and influence your actions, which is the things you do have control over, you don't necessarily control your emotions, you can control what you do as a result of them. In that instance, what we need to be practicing is learning how to control that. So patience in that instance, was it that the woman doesn't feel sad? It was that when she felt sad and she felt hurt, that she didn't look at somebody and say to them, "You, who are you? What do you know?" Right? It's an exercise in discipline. Islam is a religion of discipline. You will hear me say that over and over and over again on this channel. And that's just because it's simply true. Islam is a religion of discipline. It goes to the extent that you even discipline your emotional reactions. So that's one when it comes to patience. The other thing that we need to really appreciate about enduring hardship when you're going through difficulty is you are meant to seek ways out of it. You are not meant to just endure the difficulty on your own. Even if something that is hard cannot be resolved 100%, you can resolve it by some sort of percent. And now I'm going to present to you a principle called gradualism. Gradualism is basically the idea that things happen in life little by little, slowly but surely. This is actually a promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala operates the universe in this way through the principle of gradualism. This is one of the, there's a concept called the sunan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sorry, guys. There's a concept of the sunan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the laws in which He operates the world, the universe. And gradualism is one of them. And so when it comes to even a hardship, we can apply the principle of gradualism, which means even though we might be enduring whatever the hardship is, and it might be a health issue, it might be a relationship issue, it might be issues in your home, it might be issues in your finances. Those tend to be the big buckets that people have difficulties with. You might not be able to 100% rid yourself of the hardship, but you need to tackle. If you are someone who cares about God-conscious self-improvement, everyone's going to have an opinion about this. I really don't, and I say this in the nicest way possible. I don't care about the virtue signaling around this topic. I've been there, done that. I had been a person who dealt with depression since the age of 9 years old. I'm telling you what worked to get me out of that. And these are principles. In this extreme case, if it worked, it is going to work for you. If this does not work for you, then that's fine. You can go to another channel to figure out what does work for you. But I'm here to offer you guys the practical tools and tricks through our faith for God-conscious self-improvement. I say that I'm trying to build a community of God-conscious self-improvement junkies. People who are just absolutely obsessed with this because we want to be better versions of ourselves. And ultimately, we want to be pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through that transformation. So you need to believe that you can do something to change your circumstances. Think of the hadith, right? There's a hadith of have tawakkul, right? Aqil wa tawakkul. Aqil wa tawakkul. Basically, tie your camel. Have trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then tie your camel. This is the same idea, is that you might trust that in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's wisdom. Even if you don't understand it, you trust that Allah's putting you through whatever He's either putting you through or He's allowing you to go through it, because at the end of the day, what is on the other side, if you allow it to, is going to be so transformative and bring you closer to His pleasure and ultimately Jannah. But you are not helpless and powerless ever. Allah gave us free will as human beings. To ever think, when people are just like, if you ever find yourself feeling powerless, you've already lost the battle. The devil has literally already won, because that is the one thing. If he can take that away from us, if he can take away our willingness to believe that we have autonomy, that we have an ability to impact our circumstances, then he'll just allow us to dwell in the hopelessness. And at one point, hopelessness is going to lead to a disconnection from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you're just like, well, if Allah's not going to get me out of this, then what am I going to do? I might as well just enjoy life on my own terms, and why am I making myself miserable following all of these rules as a Muslim? You need to believe you can do something about your circumstances, and that means you need to seek things out. You don't believe me? The most often used as standard of treatment for major depressive disorder and just depressive mood disorders in general is cognitive behavioral therapy. You want me to break it down for you? Cognitive, brain, the way you think, behavioral, the way you behave, the things, the actions you take. Therapy. It is literally therapy that is focused on changing the way you think about yourself and your circumstances and helping you to do the things that are going to better your situation. You have to constantly be thinking, what can I do? Again, you can still have the emotions, but what can I do to make things better? You are struggling financially. What can I do to make things better for myself? Can I start studying on the side to seek an opportunity for a job that is better? Can I go ask for a raise? Can I try to get a promotion? Can I start picking up more hours? Can I start a side hustle, or become a contractor with whatever skills I have? Can I expand my skills? Right? You're dealing with relationship issues. You're dealing with relationship issues with your parents or with your husband or wife. What can I do to make that better? Can I learn better communication skills? Can I let go of the disdain I have for a certain topic and just let it go so I can keep the peace? Can I start thinking about maybe it's time to end this relationship? It's not good. Can I start seeking counsel? Can I go to couples therapy? Can I go to personal therapy? Can I read books on how to better things? Can I have a conversation? What can you do? There's always something you can do. There's always something you can do. Don't let anyone ever tell you the difference. Someone who tells you differently doesn't really care about your personal growth, right? We tend to, when people tell us the hardship that they're going through, we tend to sulk with them or to, oh my God, I'm so sorry, that really sucks, and blah, blah, blah. And gosh, and it's like, if we're friends of those people, and this is the kind of relationship that I seek in my friends and the people that I keep around me, I want you to help me figure it out. I want you to help me think about what I can do. I want you to help me get out of the low point that I'm in where I'm thinking I can't do anything and do something. I did that for years. I truly did. And I'm going to move on to the third point, which is you need to understand a huge principle of discipline. Discipline is going to get you places that nothing else will. Discipline is going to be the reason I obsess about discipline, the reason why I think it is so important, the reason I say Islam is a religion of discipline, is because discipline is a skill that if you have it, you are undefeatable, you are unstoppable. Why? Because discipline will allow you to do things regardless of where you are up here. Discipline will allow you to get things done regardless of your emotional state. What does that mean? When it comes to changing your circumstances, you need to be willing to push yourself to do the things that you need to do even when you're not motivated. I had a video. This is, I think, the most viral video I have on TikTok. I think we're at like almost 20K people. Let me find it. And it was basically, the whole point of the video was pretty simple. It was why you suck at discipline. This is why people struggle with discipline. We're at nearly 20K on this video. The point that I made in that video, and I will probably do an entire new video on YouTube about this, is that you need to stop operating when it comes to discipline from the version of you that's motivated and operate from the place that's unmotivated. You need to think about, okay, I have this goal in mind. I want to be disciplined enough to reach this goal. I don't care what the goal is. It can be as big as building a multi-billion-dollar business to as simple as getting yourself to go for a walk, 3 times a week. Stop assuming you're going to be as motivated then as you are now the moment that you're making the goal. And you need to set yourself up for success by thinking about what is the unmotivated version of me going to do to sabotage me. Because that's how people fail. That's why the majority, over 90% of people are not going to make or meet their goals because they don't understand this concept. You're watching my channel. You're not trying to be the 90%. You're trying to be that 10% who really, masters discipline. So when it comes to all of those things that you need to do to change your life, think about how am I going to push myself to do these things even when I'm not motivated? So I'm going to use the gym as an example because it's the easiest example. It's one of the most common goals that people have, right? Whether it's for health, aesthetics, mental health, physical health, aesthetics, mental health, it doesn't really matter to me. The point is you're trying to get yourself to the gym. Okay, what about the days where you're really struggling with let's say you're someone who struggles with your mental health and you're depressed. What about the days when you really don't want to go there because you don't want to get out of bed because you're really having a hard time? What are you going to do to make sure you get out of there? Are you just going to sit in bed all day? You're just going to sulk in bed all day? Remember, I've been there. I know that feeling. I know what it feels to wake up and be like, oh my gosh, I wish I could sleep for 5 more hours because I wish I didn't have to tackle the day. Because the day was just a reminder of how miserable my life was. No, you're going to think, okay, what are the things I can put in place? I used to give a tip when it came to this, right? It's just like 30 minutes. Give yourself 30 minutes of, to feel sad and to feel like, to feel the misery of your circumstances, and then make the decision of what to do next. This is actually in a part of a therapy called acceptance and commitment therapy, which is one of my favorite subcategories of cognitive behavioral therapy, because it really honors autonomy in a person. It really honors the fact that you can do something. It's like, okay, take what you have, take your circumstance, accept them for what they are, and do what you can otherwise, right? So you need to figure out for yourself, in this hardship, whatever hardship you're dealing with, how do I get myself to do the things that are going to better my circumstances regardless of what I'm experiencing? And then you do those things. And then you do those things every day. And you watch the principle of gradualism take place, because you're doing it every day over a long period of time. You think you're going to just be in the same exact place in a year from now when you've been doing something every single day to change your life? Does that make sense? It doesn't make sense that you're going to be in the same place. You're going to be changing up here. Even if everything around you is the same, you're going to be changing up here, and you're going to be unstoppable. I'm not just saying that. I'm not using buzzwords for the fun of it. I genuinely mean this, okay? The next thing, when it comes to just getting through hardship in general, right? You can read all the books you want, you can listen to all the lectures you want, and you should. Knowledge is important. It is important to learn about our deen and our faith, but you need to have an individual relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is where so many people, oddly enough, fail when it comes to enduring patience. You are going to endure hardship. How are you not going to turn to the one who is quite literally the changer of circumstances? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-qadir. He is the able, the one who can literally in a moment, kun fayakun, he says, be, and it is. In a moment can change everything for you. A single phone call and everything is. Why don't you have a relationship with Allah? Now let me talk a bit about this, because it's nuance, right? Everything is nuance. A relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a vulnerable one, and sometimes when you're going through struggle, you're already in such a vulnerable place. It can feel hard to have vulnerability with anyone, even if it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You still have to find it in your heart to push yourself, because while vulnerability in front of people can feel very weak, can make us feel weak, vulnerability in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the strongest you will ever be. Why? Because you have just completely committed yourself to the understanding that you have full, unhindered access to the most powerful being that we know of, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our faith is not a faith where you have to go to a pastor or go to the sheikh and pay a certain amount of money or give a confession, or no. In a moment, right now, in this instance, you can ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah says, tell my believing slaves to call upon me, I will respond. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that when you think of me, I'm near. Right? It's a metaphorical nearness. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not a physical being. We know that. But the point is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is wanting us to transcend these difficulties. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Allah wants us to be self-improved. Allah wants us to be those God-conscious self-improvement junkies that I talked about. Have a relationship with Him. Make it a point that you are making dua. Now listen, I don't want to be a hypocrite right now. I'm going to tell you straight up, I had a lot of trouble, especially with dua. I really struggled to remember making dua. I struggled to create a space in my time to make dua. I'd forget to make it. Why? I'm going to tell you why. I struggled because, one, making dua was just a reminder of the pain that I was in, because I had to speak about it. I had to tell someone about it. And I'm someone who really struggled with speaking up about the difficulty that I was experiencing. I'm someone who is an isolator. That's how I dealt with my pain. I isolated. I kept to myself. I did what I needed to do in front of people, and I was very high functioning, and I was accomplishing all of this, but alone by myself, I did not know how to operate. It was so hard for me. And so being vulnerable with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made me feel like, oh my gosh, I'm being reminded of the truth of the circumstances, and then I felt so overwhelmed. The other thing is that sometimes I felt like, is anything going to even change it is if I'm praying? And that's not a mindset any Muslim should have, right? And so what I had to do to get myself there is I had to say, okay, it sucks. And yeah, it's part of bringing awareness to what I'm dealing with makes me feel bad, but this is part of my healing process. This is a part of what needs to change, what needs to change in my life. And so I would force myself to make dua. I would lock the door in my room. I would sit on my prayer mat and I would just try to use it as a one-on-one time. Another thing that I would do that I think is a really great practical aspect, a practical tool you can use, is you speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the same way you would speak to a friend. That way it's less intimidating, right? And I would just talk to Allah. I'm like, man, Allah subhanahu, yeah, Allah, I'm really struggling right now. I don't know how I'm gonna do this. This is what's bothering me about it. I feel very helpless in the situation. I want, like, just help me. I don't even know what to ask for specifically. You don't have to have this perfect, eloquent, marvelous dua. You can just, dua just means to call to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? It's not that you have to have these perfectly constructed words, or that you have to string together a beautiful, melodious, poetic type prayer. No, you just speak. You call to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is listening. Allah is a Samir. He is one that hears. Allah is a Basir. He is one that sees. He knows what you're going through. You think that He's just ignoring you? He's not going to ignore you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is way above in His might, in His everything. He doesn't need to listen to us. And yet He promised us in His book that He allows us access to Him through, that He is there for us when we call upon Him. So why would we not exercise that pathway? It's like having, like, the CEO of a company on speed dial. Can you imagine? Like, I was having issues with my webcam earlier. I was having issues with my webcam actually yesterday. I just had to buy a new one. It's a Logitech. Can you imagine if I just had the CEO on Logitech and I was just like, hey man, like, webcam's not working. Can you send me a new one? And they were like, yeah, of course, I'll send it to you. Like, you have the CEO of the universe at a single call. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just wants you, He wants us to have that closeness to Him. So why are we not exercising it? So what's next? What else do I want to talk about when it comes to patience? When it comes to patience also, is I want you to never allow the difficulty that you're going through. First of all, don't let shaitan play you. Why? You're too smart for that. You're way too smart for that. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already told us about all the tricks that the shaitan will use. I see so many people who go through hardship and all of a sudden they stop praying, or they stop making, like, their faith wavers and weakens. You are too smart for that. You're too smart for that. Yes, I'm saying it's stupid. It is stupid to let your deen go and let your faith go when you are going through hardship. It is not let me tell you why. First of all, you already knew that this is a trick. It's like you just fell for it. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, shaitan is going to do this. He's going to get you to a point where you're hopeless, and then he's going to pull you from me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you ever hear that metaphor? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you find yourself far from God, remember God never moved. It's not God. So you were in full control. If you can control one thing, all the things that you do, you can control your worship. You were in full control of your worship, and you let that go. And you knew that would be the inevitable outcome if you didn't do things to prevent it. That's one. Two is you're removing yourself from the one, again, who can fully change your circumstances. You can do everything. You can do everything in your power, like in this dunya. But if you neglect that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just decides, okay, we're going to hold this person in hardship until they come back, because Allah cares about our akhirah. Allah will allow us to thrive and do well in our dunya, but Allah's priority is our akhirah, because at the end of the day, that's eternal. Who cares when the dunya is a blip in this tiny line, right? There's literally a hadith about a man who will be dipped into the fire of hell, and they'd be asked, have you ever had a good day in your life? Have you ever had a moment of goodness in your life? And they'd be like, I've never seen a moment of goodness in my life. They lived there. This is a person who lived in the laps of luxury. Just complete luxury. This is what they're experiencing. It's like we need to care more about our akhirah. The other thing is, think about it this way. Imagine when you get through that end of the hardship and you were someone who didn't neglect their worship. You got to the end of the hardship, and then you could look back and you can be like, subhanallah, what did that tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when even throughout my difficulty I refused to not pray? I refuse to neglect my deen. I refuse. I was like, I'm still going to hold on to this even through the hardship. What does that tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Do you know the reward that you get when you're going through hardship and you have to force yourself to go pray? It's not like, oh my gosh, I'm excited. It's Maghrib time. Let me go pray. You literally have to be like, oh my God, I have to drag myself out of bed. I have to drag myself to. Do you not understand that the difficulty level of difficulty of a task is commensurate to its reward? Do you not, like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes that into account when He gives us a reward? What are you telling Allah when you're saying, I even in the difficult moments, Ya Allah, I never wanted to let go of the duties and your rights upon me. How beautiful is that? How beautiful is that? And then on the opposite, imagine you get out of the hardship and you even end up even better than before. You're even more successful, but you neglected Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What does that tell God? What does that tell God? I'm speaking to right now people who are God conscious, who think about God. If you're not someone who cares about this stuff, you're in the wrong place. I don't know why you're watching this video. I don't think it's going to do much for you. But if you are someone who is Muslim, like God gave you this gift, or even if you're not Muslim, you're just someone who cares about the existence of God, right? You might be Christian watching this. You might be, I don't know, you might be Jewish. You believe in God. It's like, why would you do the things that neglect God's rights in a time of hardship? Now, listen, I know it's hard because remember we were talking about that motivation aspect, and all religions have a concept of spirituality. It's like that feel-good aspect of faith. Islam does too. But by and large, even when it comes to just worship in general, even if you don't feel good about it and you don't feel good and like excited and motivated and it's not giving those warm fuzzy feelings in your heart, doesn't take away from the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded it of us and there's a reason for it. And so we need to get up and fulfill the command. There are many times that I had to get up and pray and I had there was no movement in my heart from it, but I was just like, I treat it as a chore. I have another TikTok video and a whole video about Salah. If you struggle with Salah, you can go check that video out. But yeah, I just treated it like a chore, and we got to do that. This is for the sake of our own personal self-improvement, and tied intimately to that is our akhirah. If you want the feel-good kind of patience stuff, you can look up a lecture by like a scholar that might make you feel. You can watch something by Mufti Menk. I am more concerned about the practical aspect of this because I want to see people thrive and I want to see people actively doing the things that are going to make them a more powerful version of themselves. Point blank simple. I want you to be the kind of Muslim that the Prophet ﷺ wanted us to be. That's the one that he was trying to exemplify. We're supposed to take his example. That was a point, right? Of all of these documentations of his life. I listed like 3 or 4 hadith in just this 30 minutes. Like we were supposed to pull from his life. And if we can't pull from his life in the hardship, then it's like, what's the point of pulling from it in the ease? You know, we lose out on so much. This is where we truly see who we are, is in those difficult moments. That's where the contents of our heart and truly what we like believe and what we hold as our values, that's when that comes out. Don't neglect that even through hardship. Assalamu alaikum, guys. I hope that this video was helpful for you. I don't know if you like this style. If you do, you know, I'm going to be doing more videos like this. I just really want to offer as much value as I can. If you like this video, then please like the video. Like, hit the thumbs up button. It helps me so much. Comment below. Have a conversation. I really want these videos to be pushed out in the algorithm, and ultimately subscribe if you haven't. I make content about God conscious self-improvement, and if you guys are interested in following me on any social media, it'll be linked below, and I will try to remember to link my Salah video in the link below as well. Assalamu alaikum. Bye.